Blood doesn't make you family. Love does. Those words burned into my skin like acid the day my stepmother Claire hissed that I wasn't part of the family. I was 26, standing in the kitchen of the home I grew up in, clutching an invitation to my own stepsister's wedding that hadn't even been addressed to me. My name is Elena Moretti, 32 years old now, but that moment 6 years ago in Boston still feels like a fresh cut whenever I think about it. My father had remarried when I was 12, bringing Claire and her daughter Sophia into our lives after my mother died of cancer. For 14 years, I believed we were a family, despite Claire's subtle coldness that grew more pronounced after my father passed away when I was 24. I found this in the mail, I said that afternoon, holding up Sophia's wedding invitation. My voice sounded small, even to my own ears. Outside, spring rain tapped against the windows, a gentle sound at odds with the tension crackling between us in the kitchen. Claire was chopping vegetables, the knife hitting the cutting board with rhythmic precision. She didn't look up. That wasn't meant for you. But it's Sophia's wedding. She's my stepsister. The chopping stopped. Claire set down the knife and finally met my eyes. Her gaze was cool, assessing. She wiped her hands on a dishcloth with deliberate slowness. Elena, let's be honest with each other. You were my husband's daughter. Now that he's gone, she shrugged, as if my place in their family had been nothing more than a legal technicality that had expired with my father's death. My chest tightened. I've been Sophia's sister for 14 years. Stepsister, Claire corrected sharply. And Sophia wants a small wedding. Family only. The emphasis on family felt like a slap. I struggled to breathe properly, my fingertips tingling as they gripped the invitation harder. I am family, I whispered. Clyde sighed, impatience flashing across her face. You're not part of this family, Elena. Not anymore. Your father would have wanted you to move on with your life by now, not cling to us. Sophia's wedding is at the Harborview Hall in 3 months. I'm sure you understand why you won't be receiving an invitation. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, the familiar yellow walls closing in. The scent of the garlic and onions Claire had been chopping turned my stomach. I backed away, the invitation crumpling in my fist. Does Sophia know about this? I asked, my voice barely audible. It was her decision, Claire replied, turning back to her chopping. The lie was obvious in the way she wouldn't meet my eyes again. I left without another word, walking through the spring rain without an umbrella, letting it soak through my clothes until they clung to my skin like a second layer of shame. My apartment was 15 blocks away, but I walked every step, numb to everything except the ache spreading through my chest. That night, I sat on my bed and stared at the photos on my nightstand. My father and me at my college graduation. The 4 of those, Dad, Claire, Sophia, and me at Sophia's high school graduation. Family photos that apparently meant nothing now that my father was gone. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Mom told me you stopped by. Sorry about the wedding thing. It's complicated. We'll catch up soon. I promise. I didn't reply. What was there to say? Complicated was Claire's speak for I don't want you there but don't want to be the bad guy. Sophia had always taken the path of least resistance with her mother. 3 days later, I was in my office at Moretti Event Planning. The business I'd built from nothing after college. I specialized in weddings. Ironically enough, my assistant, Marcus, knocked on my door. Elena, you okay? You've been staring at the same email for 20 minutes. I blinked, pulling myself back to the present. I'm fine. Just tired. Marcus didn't believe me we'd been friends since business school, but he let it slide. The Harborview Hall contract came in for the June wedding. Want me to handle it? My heart stuttered. Harborview Hall? The venue by the bay? Yeah, new luxury venue. Opened last year. Gorgeous place. Insanely expensive. Booked solid for the next 2 years. He tilted his head. Why? You know it. I thought of Claire's words. Sophia's wedding is at the Harborview Hall in 3 months. No, I lied. I just heard about it. Let me see the contract. As Marcus left to get the paperwork, a plan began to form in my mind. It was petty, unprofessional, and potentially disastrous for my business reputation. But in that moment, all I could hear was Claire's voice. You're not part of this family. 2 weeks later, I sat across from Victor Chun, owner of Harborview Hall. He was in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair and keen eyes that missed nothing. The venue was even more beautiful than I'd imagined: floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor, crystal chandeliers, marble floors. "Ms. Moretti, your client list is impressive," he said, reviewing my portfolio. "You've planned events for some significant Boston families. I believe in creating memorable experiences," I replied, forcing myself to maintain eye contact despite my churning stomach. "Every detail matters." He nodded approvingly. "That's why I built this place. To create perfect moments." He gestured around the empty ballroom. "Most venues are booked through traditional channels, but I prefer personal relationships. I select who uses Harborview Hall. That's unusual in this business. Perhaps, but this venue is personal to me." His eyes crinkled. "My daughter was married in Italy, in a villa that had been in the family for generations. I wanted to create something similar here, a place with meaning, not just a rental space." I swallowed hard. This was the moment. "Mr. Chun, I'd like to propose a partnership. My company would become your exclusive event planner. We'd handle all weddings at Harborview Hall, ensuring a consistent standard of excellence." His eyebrows rose. "Exclusive, that's quite a request. It would benefit us both. Your venue would maintain its reputation for perfection, and my company would gain prestige from the association." I slid a proposal across the table, my hands steady despite my racing heart. "I've outlined the financial arrangements. I think you'll find them generous." What I didn't say was that my proposal would give me approval rights over all events at Harborview Hall, including Sophia's wedding. Victor studied the proposal, then studied me. "Why Harborview specifically, Ms. Moretti? There are many luxury venues in Boston." I met his gaze evenly, telling a version of the truth. "Because it's the best, and I only work with the best." 2 days later, I signed the contract, making Moretti Event Planning the exclusive coordinator for Harborview Hall. 1 week after that, I received an email that made my blood run cold. New booking request. Wedding of Sophia Taylor and James Wilson, June 15th. I stared at my computer screen for a long time, my finger hovering over the mouse. With one click, I could deny the request. With another, I could approve it but assign myself as the mandatory coordinator. Either way, Claire would have to face me. In the end, I approved the booking and assigned myself as coordinator. Then I waited for the storm. It came 3 days later when my office phone rang and Claire's name flashed on the caller ID. I took a deep breath and answered. "Moretti Event Planning." There was silence on the other end. Then Claire's tightly controlled voice. "What do you think you're doing?" "My job," I replied, my own voice surprisingly calm. "Congratulations on Sophia's engagement. I look forward to working with you both on her special day." "This is low, even for you," Claire hissed, "using your business to force your way into a family event." The word family sparked something in me, burning away my calculated coolness. "You made it clear I'm not family. Now, I'm just a business contact. Isn't that better for everyone? We'll find another venue." "Gidjalaki. Harborview is booked solid for the next 2 years, and you've already put down a non-refundable deposit." I paused. "Or you could simply work with me professionally. I am very good at my job." The silence stretched between us like a tightrope. Finally, Claire spoke, her voice brittle. "Sophia will be devastated." It was manipulative, designed to make me back down. 2 weeks ago, it might have worked, but not anymore. If that's true, she can call me herself. My door is always open to family. I hung up before Claire could respond, my hands shaking. Then I sat at my desk until the shaking stopped, wondering if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my professional life and if the petty satisfaction was worth it. My phone remained silent for the rest of the day. No call from Sophia. No text. Nothing. That night, I curled up on my sofa with a glass of wine, rain pattering against my windows, and wondered what my father would think of me now. The first meeting was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon in March, exactly 3 months before the wedding. I arrived at Harborview Hall 30 minutes early, arranging my portfolio and sampled books on the long table in the consultation room. Through the windows, the harbor glittered in the spring sunshine, sailboats cutting white paths across the blue water. My hands trembled slightly as I straightened a stack of fabrics. I'd been planning weddings for years, guiding emotional brides and anxious mothers through one of life's most stressful events. But this was different. This was Sophia, the girl who had shared my bedroom for 2 years until our parents bought the bigger house in Beacon Hill. The girl who had borrowed my clothes without asking throughout high school. The girl who had held my hand at my father's funeral. The door opened. I turned, professional smile in place, and found myself face to face with Sophia. She looked different. Her dark hair was shorter now, cut in a sleek bob that framed her face. She'd lost weight, but the biggest change was in her eyes. The familiar warmth was gone, replaced by wariness. "Elena," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "Sophia," I replied, maintaining my smile. "It's been a while." "6 months?" she said. "Not since Dad's birthday dinner." The mention of my father hung between us. I gestured to the table. "Please, have a seat. We have a lot to cover for your big day." She didn't move. "Is Mom coming?" The appointment was for 2 o'clock. "It's only 1:45. Sophia nodded, then reluctantly sat down. She didn't remove her coat or take out her phone signs. She didn't plan to stay long. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. I busied myself with my portfolio. "Because it's my job. You know what I mean, Elena. This venue. Inserting yourself into my wedding when you know." She stopped, pressing her lips together. I looked up, meeting her eyes. "When I know what? That I'm not invited? That I'm not part of the family anymore." She had the grace to look uncomfortable. "It's complicated. So, you said in your text 3 months ago." I kept my voice even, professional. "Let's be clear, Sophia. I'm not here as your stepsister. I'm here as the venue coordinator. I'll help you plan the perfect wedding day because that's what I do for all my clients." Her face flushed. "This is about getting back at Mom, isn't it?" "This is about business," I corrected her. "My company has an exclusive contract with Harborview Hall. If you want this venue, you work with me. It's that simple. We could find another place." 3 months before the wedding, in peak season, I shook my head. "G'd luck. But if that's what you want, I'll have Mr. Chun process your cancellation. You'll lose your deposit, of course." The door opened again, and Claire walked in. She'd aged in the past 3 months, more lines around her eyes, more gray in her blonde hair. She stopped when she saw me, her mouth tightening into a thin line. "Hello, Claire," I said pleasantly. "Please join us." We were just discussing Sophia's options. Claire slid into a chair beside her daughter, placing her handbag precisely on the table. "There's only one option. We're keeping this venue, and you're going to be professional about it." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm always professional." "Good." Claire opened her purse and extracted a notebook. "Then, let's proceed. Sophia wants white roses and peonies for the centerpieces." Just like that, we were discussing flowers and linens and menu options, as if the weight of our shared history wasn't pressing down on every word. I made notes, showed samples, and explained the venue's policies in my best client-facing voice. Sophia gradually relaxed enough to remove her coat, even showing a flash of genuine excitement when discussing the cake design. Claire remained cool and businesslike throughout, until I brought up the seating chart. "The ballroom can accommodate 30 tables of 10. I explained, showing them the floor plan. "With your guest list of 250, that gives you room to spread out a bit." Claire's pen paused on her notebook. "The guest list is 285 now. That's still within capacity," I assured her, making a note. "Will you want a separate table for immediate family, or will you include them at the head table with the bridal party?" A charged silence fell over the room. I looked up to find both women staring at me with identical expressions of discomfort. Understanding dawned. They thought I was angling for an invitation. I kept my face neutral. "I'm asking from a planning perspective. Some couples prefer a sweetheart table for just the bride and groom, with parents and siblings at nearby tables. Others include immediate family at the head table. Just the bridal party at the head table," Sophia said quickly. "Parents and others at nearby tables." "Perfect." I made another note, ignoring the pang in my chest. "Now, about the rehearsal dinner, Harborview has a lovely private dining room that would be perfect." The meeting continued for another 40 minutes. By the end, we had made decisions about catering, music, and the ceremony set up. I closed my portfolio. I think we've covered the essentials for today. I'll email you both a summary and the next steps. I stood, signaling the end of our time. Unless you have other questions. Claire gathered her things without looking at me. This arrangement is temporary, Elena. After the wedding, we go back to how things were. The statement was so unnecessarily cruel that it took my breath away. I'd been nothing but professional, and still she needed to twist the knife. How things were? I repeated, my professional mask slipping. You mean with me erased from the family like I never existed? Like my father never existed? Sophia's head snapped up. That's not fair! Dad has nothing to do with this! Doesn't he? I turned to her. When he was alive, I was part of this family. The moment he died, I became inconvenient. Tell me how that isn't about him. Claire stood, eyes flashing. Your father would be ashamed of how you're behaving right now. The words hit me like a physical blow. You don't get to speak for him, I said, my voice shaking. Ever. Stop it, both of you. Sophia's voice cut through our tension. She looked from her mother to me, her expression pained. This is exactly why I didn't want she caught herself, but it was too late. Didn't want me at your wedding. I finished for her. Just say it, Sophia. Own your decision instead of hiding behind your mother. Sophia's face crumpled. It's not that simple, Elena. James's family is very traditional. They're already uncomfortable with our blended family history. Adding a stepsister who isn't really, legally, after Dad died, After Dad died, what? I pressed. I stopped being family. Is that really how you see it? She couldn't hold my gaze. That was answer enough. I gathered my own materials with hands that weren't quite steady. I'll email you both tomorrow with the follow-up. Please let me know if you need to reschedule our next meeting. I walked out before either of them could respond, maintaining my composure until I reached my car in the parking garage. Only then did I allow the tears to come hot and fast, blurring my vision as I gripped the steering wheel. I had thought forcing my way into Sophia's wedding would give me satisfaction, a way to make Claire and Sophia acknowledge me, even if just as a business contact. Instead, it had only confirmed what I'd been trying to deny. In their minds, I truly wasn't family anymore. My phone buzzed with a text. I wiped my eyes enough to read it. Marcus, client meeting, go okay? Need me to pick up coffee on my way back to the office? The normalcy of it was like a lifeline. I took a deep breath, wiped my fussy, and typed back. Meeting, fine. Yes to coffee, make mine a double. I started my car and pulled out of the garage, heading back to my office, to place where I was valued, where I belonged. The place I had built for myself after losing everything else. That evening, my doorbell rang as I was changing into sweatpants and a tee, ready for a night of takeout and mindless television. I peered through the peephole, surprised to see Victor Chun standing in my hallway. I opened the door, suddenly conscious of my casual clothes and bare feet. Mr. Chun, this is unexpected. He smiled apologetically. I'm sorry to intrude. Ms. Moretti, I was in the neighborhood and wanted to discuss something that couldn't wait until tomorrow. I hesitated, then stepped back. Please, come in. And it's Elena. Then, I'm Victor. He stepped into my apartment, glancing around with interest. My place was small but carefully decorated, hardwood floors, cream-colored walls, and furniture in shades of blue and gray. One wall was devoted to framed photographs of weddings I'd planned, happy couples caught in moments of pure joy. Can I offer you something to drink? I asked, falling back on hostess manners my father had instilled in me. No, thank you. I won't stay long. Victor moved to the window that overlooked the city skyline. I was at Harborview this afternoon. I saw you meeting with the Taylor family. My stomach tightened. Yes, I'm handling their wedding personally. He turned to face me. I make it a point to know my business partners, Elena. Before I signed our contract, I researched you thoroughly. Your company, your background, your family. I swallowed. I see. Sophia Taylor is your stepsister. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yes, and yet, from what I observed today, your relationship is strained. I moved to the kitchen, needing something to do with my hands. Would you like that drink now? I have wine, beer, Or I could make coffee. Wine would be nice, he conceded. I poured us each a glass of Cabernet, using the moment to compose myself. When I handed him his glass, his eyes were kind but penetrating. Our contract gives you approval rights over all events at Harborview, he said. You used that power to force your way into planning your stepsister's wedding. May I ask why? I took a sip of wine before answering. It's complicated. Family usually is. He settled onto my sofa, clearly prepared to stay until he got an answer. Perhaps it was the unexpectedness of his visit, or the emotional drain of the day, or simply the fact that someone was finally asking me directly, but the story spilled out of me. My mother's death, my father's remarriage, the years of believing I was part of a family, then my father's death and the slow, painful realization that Claire had merely tolerated me for his sake. When I found out they were planning this huge wedding and hadn't even told me, much less invited me, Something broke, I admitted. I saw an opportunity with Harborview, and I took it. It was unprofessional and petty, and I'm sorry if it compromises our business relationship. Victor listened without interrupting. When I finished, he set down his wine glass. Do you know why I built Harborview Hall? The apparent non sequitur caught me off guard. You mentioned something about your daughter's wedding in Italy. My daughter. Yes, but there's more to it. He gazed out the window at the darkening sky. I was born in Hong Kong. My family came to America when I was 10. My father worked 3 jobs to support us, and my mother cleaned houses. They saved every penny for my education. He turned back to me. When I graduated from MIT, I started a tech company that became successful beyond any of our dreams. I bought my parents a beautiful house in the suburbs, but my mother refused to move. She said our little apartment in Chinatown was home because that's where we became a family. I waited, unsure where the story was going. 2 years later, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. She died within 6 months. His voice remained steady, but I saw the old grief in his eyes. At her funeral, my father's sister, who had never approved of their marriage, told me that now my mother was gone, I should focus on my real family, meaning her side, who suddenly wanted a relationship with the successful nephew they'd ignored for years. Understanding dawned. What did you do? I built Harborview Hall, he said simply, named for the view of the harbor my mother loved from our tiny apartment window. I designed it to host celebrations of family weddings, anniversaries, reunions, true family, formed by love and loyalty, not just blood or marriage certificates. He leaned forward. Elena, I allowed you to use our contract to insert yourself into your stepsister's wedding because I understood why you needed to do it. But now I must ask, what is your endgame? Revenge? Reconciliation? Or are you simply prolonging your own pain? His directness left me speechless. I'd been so focused on making Claire and Sophia acknowledge me that I hadn't thought beyond the wedding day. I don't know, I admitted finally. I just couldn't bear being a Vitor Nadad. Understandable. But as someone who has walked a similar path, let me offer some advice. Don't confuse being right with being happy. Sometimes, the family we're born or married into isn't the family we need. He stood, setting his half-finished wine on the coffee table. Shoo. Thank you for your honesty. At the door, he paused. Our contract stands, Elena. You're an excellent event planner, and I value our partnership, but perhaps consider assigning another coordinator to the Taylor wedding. I can't, I said quietly. Not yet. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Then I hope you find what you're looking for. After Hay left, I returned to the window, staring out at the city lights blurring through my tears. For the first time, I asked myself what I truly wanted from this confrontation with my past. Closure. Validation, a chance to say goodbye to the family I thought I had, or was I simply punishing Claire and Sophia for showing me a truth I'd been denying even before my father died, that I had never truly belonged? I didn't have answers, only a wedding to plan and 3 months to figure it out. April in Boston brought chilly rain and occasional glimpses of spring sunshine. I threw myself into work, handling Sophia's wedding with ruthless professionalism while juggling 5 other events. At our second planning meeting, Claire brought along Sophia's fiancé, James, a tall, serious man who worked in finance and seemed perpetually bewildered by the amount of detail involved in planning a wedding. The florist needs to know about the chuppah design today, I explained, showing them sketches. Since you're blending traditions, we need to be clear about the structure. James frowned. I thought we'd decided on the traditional Jewish canopy. Mom wants flowers on it, Sophia said, glancing at Claire. A lot of flowers. Claire's lips tightened. It's traditional to decorate the chuppah. Elena knows that. Don't you, Elena? There was a challenge in her voice. I met her gaze evenly. Actually, in Jewish tradition, the chuppah is often quite simple. A taladon, 4 poles can be sufficient, but many modern couples choose to elaborate with flowers or fabric. I turned to James. What does your family prefer? James looked surprised to be consulted directly. My parents would appreciate a traditional approach. My grandfather is a rabbi, and he'll be performing the ceremony. I nodded. Then, perhaps a compromise? A traditional structure with subtle floral accents that don't overwhelm the meaning of the chuppah. Sophia's expression softened with relief. That sounds perfect. Claire shot me a look, but said nothing. It was a small victory showing that I could be fair, that I wasn't sabotaging the wedding out of spite, but it didn't ease the knot of tension that formed in my stomach every time I entered a planning meeting with them. After the meeting, James lingered as Sophia and Claire gathered their things. Elena, he said quietly, Sophia told me about your ... situation. I want you to know, I would have included you in the wedding if it had been entirely my decision. His kindness was unexpected and disarming. Thank you, James. That means a lot. It's just... He glanced at Claire, who was busy showing Sophia something on her phone. Family dynamics are complicated. My parents can be traditional to a fault, and with Sophia's family situation already being somewhat unorthodox... I understood what he wasn't saying. A deceased father, a stepmother now technically unrelated to the bride, and a stepsister with no legal ties to anyone involved. Too messy for his proper family to comprehend. I understand, I said, and I did. It wasn't personal, not from him. At least, I hope you know I'm committed to giving you both a beautiful wedding day. He studied me for a moment. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? The way Claire described you, ... He stopped, embarrassed. Well, let's just say professional wasn't the word she used. I smiled tightly. I'm full of surprises. As April turned to May, the details of Sophia's wedding came together. The invitations went out. I saw the sample, cream-colored cardstock with gold foil lettering. The final menu was selected, the cake design approved, the music playlist compiled. Through it all, I maintained my professional distance, even as I began to see cracks in the facade Claire had constructed. Sophia called me directly about minor details, instead of going through her mother. James emailed me questions about the venue, signing his messages with "thanks for everything." Even Claire became less openly hostile, though she never missed an opportunity to emphasize my outsider status. The rehearsal dinner will be family only, she informed me during our 4th meeting. 20 people, at most. The private dining room can accommodate up to 30, I replied, refusing to rise to the bait. Would you like me to arrange the menu with the chef, or will you handle that directly? She narrowed her eyes at my lack of reaction. I'll handle it. Later that week, I was working late at my office when Marcus knocked on my door. Burning the midnight oil again? He asked, leaning against the doorframe. At 35, Marcus had been my right hand since I started the business. He was tall and lanky, with close-cropped dark hair and an easy smile that belied his razor-sharp business sense. Just finishing the vendor confirmation for the Wilson-Taylor wedding. I rubbed my eyes. Everything has to be perfect. He came in and sat across from me. Elena, can I speak freely? When have you ever not? This wedding is consuming you. His voice was gentle but firm. You've lost weight. You're here until 9 every night. And you've turned down 3 potential new clients this month. I waved dismissively. I'm just busy. Peak season. No, you're obsessed. And I get it, this is personal, but I'm worried about you. He leaned forward. What happens after the wedding? When you've pulled off this perfect event for people who hurt you deeply, then what? I didn't have an answer. The truth was, I hadn't thought beyond June 5th. In my mind, the wedding had become a finish line, but I had no idea what awaited on the other side. I don't know, I admitted. I just know I have to see it through. Marcos sighed. Just promise me one thing. When this is over, you'll take a vacation, a real one, not a working from my laptop by the pool situation. I smiled despite myself. I promise. The next day, I received an unexpected call from Victor Chu. Elena, I have a situation I hope you can help with, he said, his voice tense. There's been a water main break near Harborview. The street is flooded, and repairs will take at least 2 weeks. My stomach dropped. But the Taylor Wilson wedding is in 3 weeks. Exactly. The venue will be fine, but access will be severely limited. We'll need to revise the delivery schedules, parking plans, everything. I closed my eyes, already calculating the domino effect of changes needed. I'll handle it. Let me call the couple first, then I'll contact all the vendors. Thank you. I knew I could count on you. I hung up and immediately dialed Sophia's number. When she didn't answer, I tried Claire. No response. Finally, I called James, who picked up on the second ring. Elena, is everything okay? I explained the situation as calmly as possible, emphasizing that the wedding could still proceed as planned, but with logistical adjustments. I'll manage all the vendor communications, I assured him. But I wanted you to know immediately so you can inform your guests about the parking changes. There was a pause. Then James said, actually, this might be a blessing in disguise. Sophia's been struggling with some aspects of the wedding. Would it be possible for us to meet with you tomorrow? All of us, including my parents. The request was unusual, but I agreed. Of course, my office at 10 a.m. Perfect. And, Elena? Thank you for handling this so professionally. It means a lot to both of us. His words stayed with me as I spent the rest of the day making calls, revising delivery schedules, and creating contingency plans. By the time I left the office at midnight, I had salvaged what could have been a disaster. The next morning, I arrived at my office early, preparing materials for the meeting. At precisely 10 a.m., my assistant showed in not just James and Sophia, but Claire and an elegant older couple who must be James's parents. Elena, these are my parents, David and Ruth Wilson, James said, making the introductions. Mom, Dad, this is Elena Moretti, the venue coordinator. Ruth Wilson was a slim woman in her 60s, impeccably dressed in a navy suit. She extended her hand. Miss Moretti. James speaks highly of your efficiency. Thank you for meeting with us on short notice, I replied, shaking her hand. Please have a seat. I've prepared some options for addressing the access issues at Harborview. David Wilson, a distinguished man with silver hair and James's serious eyes, settled into a chair. Actually, Ms. Moretti, we're here to discuss a more fundamental change. I glanced at Sophia, who was unusually pale, her hands twisting in her lap. Claire sat beside her, tight-lipped and rigid. I'm listening, I said cautiously. James cleared his throat. After hearing about the water main issue, Sophia and I had a long talk. The truth is, she's been increasingly anxious about the wedding. Not about marrying me, he added quickly, taking Sophia's hand, but about the scale and pressure of the event we've planned. Sophia looked up, meeting my eyes directly for the first time in weeks. I want to postpone the wedding, Elena. The statement hung in the air. Claire made a small, distressed sound. Postponed? I repeated. For how long? Indefinitely, Sophia said, her voice strengthening. James and I want to elope. Just us, his parents, a few close friends, ... She hesitated. And you, if you'd come. I stared at her in shock. Me? Claire stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. We've spent thousands of dollars. Invitations have gone out. People are coming from across the country. Claire, David Wilson said firmly, we've discussed this. The wedding should be what James and Sophia want, not what fulfills your social aspirations. Claire's face flushed. This isn't about social aspirations. It's about respect for tradition, for family. Family, Sophia interrupted, her voice trembling. You talk about family, but you excluded the one person who has been my sister for most of my life. The one person who would have made sure this day was perfect for me, even if it broke her heart to do it. The room fell silent. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process what I was hearing. Sophia turned to me, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Elena. I should have stood up to Mom months ago. I knew it was wrong to exclude you, but I was a coward." Claire sat down heavily. "Sophia, you can't be serious. After everything." "After everything what?" Sophia demanded. "After Dad died and you decided Elena wasn't convenient anymore? She was his daughter. She is my sister, and watching her plan my wedding with such professionalism when she should have been standing beside me as my maid of honor. Her voice broke. It made me realize how wrong this all is. James squeezed Sophia's hand supportively, then addressed me. "Elena, we want to cancel the big wedding. We'd like to have a small ceremony here in Boston in a few months, once we've sorted everything out, and we'd like you to be part of it not as the planner, but as family." Ruth Wilson nodded. "Any sister of Sophia's is welcome in our family, step or otherwise. David and I don't share your narrow view of family, Claire." Claire looked stunned, as if the carefully constructed world she'd built was crumbling around her. "The deposits, the guests, my friends, can all be handled." I found myself saying, professionalism kicking in despite my emotional turmoil. "We can send cancellation notices. Some deposits may be non-refundable, but I can negotiate with the vendors." Sophia looked at me with naked hope. "You'd do that for us? Even after how we treated you?" I met her gaze steadily. "That's what family does." Claire stood suddenly. "I need some air." She grabbed her purse and walked out, the door closing firmly behind her. An awkward silence fell over the room. David Wilson cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should give you two some time to talk. Ruth and I will wait outside with James." After they left, Sophia and I sat facing each other across my desk, the weight of years of unspoken hurt between us. "I don't know where to start," she said finally. "I've been terrible to you." "You let your mother make the decisions," I replied, not accusingly, but stating a fact. She nodded. "I always have. It was easier than fighting. After your dad or her dad died, she was so lost, angry, bitter. Taking care of her gave me purpose." And I reminded her of what she'd lost. I said softly, "Yes." Sophia reached across the desk, tentatively taking my hand. "But that's no excuse for how I treated you. You were grieving too." I looked down at our joined hands, remembering all the times we'd fought as teenagers, all the secrets we'd shared, all the milestones we'd celebrated together. "What changed your mind?" I asked. "About the wedding? About me?" Sophia smiled sadly. "You did. Watching you these past months, how professionally you handled everything, never letting your personal feelings interfere with making my day perfect. James noticed it first. He said you showed more grace under pressure than anyone he'd ever met." Tears pricked at my eyes. I just wanted to do my job well. It was more than that. "You could have sabotaged everything, made Mom look bad, embarrassed me in front of James's family. But you didn't." She squeezed my hand. "And then yesterday, when James told me about the water main break, I had a complete meltdown. Not about the logistics. I knew you'd handle those perfectly, but because I suddenly couldn't bear the thought of this huge, impersonal wedding where my own sister was treated like hired help. I swallowed hard." "So what happens now?" "Now we cancel the circus and plan a real wedding, one that reflects who we are and what matters to us." She hesitated. "If you'll help us, not as our planner, but as my sister, my maid of honor, if you'll do it." The tears I'd been holding back spilled over. "I'd be honored," I whispered. Sophia came around the desk and pulled me into a hug, the first real embrace we'd shared since our father's funeral. We clung to each other, both crying, years of hurt beginning to heal in that moment. When we finally separated, I wiped my eyes. "What about Claire?" Sophia's expression grew serious. "I love my mother, but it's time she understood that she doesn't get to decide who my family is. This might be the wake-up call she needs. Or it might drive a permanent wedge between you," I warned. "That's her choice," Sophia said firmly. "But I'm done letting her dictate mine." We spent the next hour outlining a plan how to cancel the big wedding, what the smaller ceremony might look like, how to handle the logistics of deposits and notifications. By the time James and his parents returned, we had the beginnings of a roadmap forward. As they were leaving, Ruth Wilson took my hand. Family is who shows up, Ms. Moretti. Not just for the celebrations, but for the hard parts too. You've shown up, even when it would have been easier to walk away. That says everything about your character. Her words stayed with me long after they left. I sat at my desk, emotionally drained but lighter somehow, as if a weight I'd been carrying for years had finally lifted. My phone buzzed with a text from Victor Chun. How did the meeting go? I hesitated, then typed, "There's been a change of plans. Can we meet tomorrow?" His response came immediately. "My office, 9 a.m. And Elena." "I told you you'd find what you were looking for." I stared at his message, wondering if he'd somehow known all along how this would end. Not with revenge or vindication, but with the painful, necessary truth finally being spoken. That night, I was preparing dinner in my apartment when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Claire standing in the hallway, looking older and more tired than I'd ever seen her. "May I come in?" she asked, her voice subdued. I stepped back, allowing her into my space. She glanced around, taking in the photos on my walls, many of them, including my father and our blended family in happier times. "Sophia told me she's asked you to be her maid of honor," Claire said, settling stiffly on my sofa. I remained standing. "Yes. And you accepted?" "Yes." Heidi nodded, as if confirming something to herself. "She's very upset with me." "Can you blame her?" "No." The admission seemed to cost her. "I've handled things poorly." I waited, unwilling to make this easy for her. After a long moment, Claire sighed heavily. "When your father died, Elena, I was angry. Not at you, precisely, but at the universe. At the unfairness of losing him so young." She smoothed her skirt, a nervous gesture I recognized from years of living with her. "Looking at you was like looking at a ghost of Robert. You have his eyes, his expressions. It hurt too much. So, you decided to erase me instead," I said quietly. "I told myself it was cleaner that way, a fresh start. You were an adult with your own life." She trailed off. I was wrong and selfish. The admission hung between us. I moved to sit in the chair across from her, keeping a careful distance. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because Sophia has made her choice very clear. She wants you in her life, in her wedding." Claire met my eyes directly. "And because despite everything, I know Robert would be ashamed of how I've treated his daughter." The mention of my father made my throat tighten. "He loved you," I said. "He would have wanted us to be a family, even after he was gone." "I know." Claire's composure cracked, her eyes filling with tears. "I failed him in that, and I failed you." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was the most vulnerable I'd ever seen her. Some part of me wanted to comfort her, to say it was all right, but it wasn't. Not yet. "Where do we go from here?" I asked instead. Claire wiped her eyes carefully. "I don't expect us to be close, Elena. Too much has happened, but I'm willing to try, for Sophia's sake. And maybe, eventually, for our own." It wasn't everything, but it was a beginning, a crack in the wall we'd built between us. "I'd like that," I said honestly. "For Dad's sake, if nothing else." She nodded, then reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. "I brought you something. I should have given it to you years ago." I took the box and opened it. Inside was my father's watch, the vintage Omega he'd worn every day for as long as I could remember. My breath caught. "He wanted you to have it," Claire said softly. "It was in his will. I just couldn't part with it." "But it's yours, Elena." "It always was." I ran my finger over the worn leather strap, remembering how it looked on my father's wrist as he checked the time. A habit so familiar it had become part of my mental image of him. "Thank you," I whispered, unable to say more past the lump in my throat. Claire stood. "I should go. Sophia's waiting to hear how this went." At the door, she paused. "The small wedding. I'll help however I can, if you'll let me." I nodded, not trusting my voice. After she left, I sat cradling my father's watch, feeling his presence more strongly than I had in years. Not a ghost to be feared or avoided, but a thread connecting the past to whatever future we might build from here. The small wedding took place in September, not at Harborview Hall, but in the garden of Victor Chun's home, a gesture of kindness I hadn't expected but should have. The afternoon was perfect. Warm sunshine filtering through ancient oak trees, the harbor glittering in the distance. There were only 30 guests, James's family, a few close friends, and what remained of our strange, broken, healing family. I stood beside Sophia as her maid of honor, wearing a simple blue dress that matched her bouquet of forget-me-nots and white roses. Claire sat in the front row, elegant in pale gray silk, her face a study in composed emotion. Behind her sat Marcus, who had become an unexpected friend to both Sophia and James during the tumultuous summer months. As James's grandfather performed the ceremony, I watched my stepsister pledge her life to the man she loved beneath. A simple chuppah, adorned with twining vines and small white flowers. When they kissed as husband and wife, I found myself crying not from loss or pain, but from a pure, uncomplicated joy I hadn't felt in years. The reception was held on Victor's patio, with string lights twinkling overhead as the sun set. I was adjusting a centerpiece when Victor appeared at my elbow. "Still working, Ms. he teased gently. "I believe today you're just a guest, the maid of honor, in fact." I smiled, embarrassed at being caught. "Old habits." He nodded towards Sophia and James, who were dancing slowly in the center of the patio, lost in their own world. "They look happy." "They are," I agreed. "Thank you for all this. Your home is beautiful." "It was my pleasure." Victor's eyes crinkled at the corners. "Besides, I've become rather invested in your family's story. Our story." I laughed. "It's hardly a fairy tale. The best stories rarely are," he replied. "The messy ones, with pain and growth and hard-won reconciliation, those are the ones worth telling." He raised his glass to me, to families we're born into and families we choose. I clinked my glass against his. To both. Later, as the evening cooled, I found a quiet moment alone on the edge of the garden, watching the stars emerge above the harbor. The weight of my father's watch on my wrist was comforting, a tangible connection to all that had been and all that might be. "There you are," Sophia said, appearing beside me in a swish of white silk. "Hiding, just taking a moment," I replied, making room for her on the stone bench. "It's been quite a day." She sat, carefully arranging her dress. "The best day. Thank you for being part of it. Thank you for wanting me here." Sophia took my hand. "I'm sorry it took me so long to stand up for what matters." "For who matters? We both made mistakes," I said honestly. "But we're here now." We sat in companionable silence, watching the lights of boats moving across the dark harbor. Finally, Sophia spoke again. "Mom asked me to give you something." She reached into a hidden pocket in her dress and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She was too nervous to give it to you herself. I unfolded the paper to find a check for a substantial amount with my name on it. "What is this?" "Your inheritance," Sophia said quietly. "From Dad? Mom never gave it to you after he died. She said she wasn't ready then, but she is now." I stared at the check, emotions tumbling through me, anger that Claire had withheld this, gratitude that she was finally doing the right thing, sadness that it had taken so long. "It's not about the money," I said. "I know. It's about what it represents." Sophia squeezed my hand. "It's her way of acknowledging that you were always part of the family, that you still are." I folded the check and tucked it into my purse. "I'll talk to her tomorrow. She'd like that." Sophia stood, extending her hand. "But tonight, I believe I'm owed a dance with my maid of honor." I laughed and let her pull me to my feet. "Lead the way, Mrs. Wilson." We rejoined the party, where James immediately claimed his bride for another dance. I found myself face to face with Claire, who had been watching us from across the patio. "It was a beautiful ceremony," I said, breaking the ice. She nodded. "Simple, elegant, meaningful." A pause. "Sophia gave you the check." "Yes. Thank you." Claire twisted her hands together. "It should have been yours years ago. I have no excuse." I thought of Victor's words about messy stories and hard-won reconciliations. "It's a start," I said, offering my hand. "Would you like to dance? I think they're playing Dad's favorite song." Surprise flickered across her face, followed by cautious hope. "I'd like that very much." As we moved awkwardly to the music, finding a rhythm that accommodated our complicated history, I caught sight of Victor watching us with approval. He raised his glass in a silent toast, and I smiled back, acknowledging what we both knew, that family, in all its messy, imperfect glory was worth fighting for. 6 months later, I sat in my office at Moretti Event Planning, reviewing the final contract for a new partnership with Harborview Hall to create a scholarship program for young event planners from disadvantaged backgrounds. The Elena Moretti Fellowship would provide training, mentorship, and job placement for 5 students each year. Marcus knocked on my door. "Your 3 o'clock is here." I looked up to see Victor Chun entering, followed by Sophia and, surprisingly, Claire. "What's this?" I asked, standing to greet them. "I thought our meeting was just with Victor." Sophia grinned. "We wanted to surprise you. Mom has an announcement." Claire stepped forward, more relaxed than I'd seen her in years. "I've decided to sell the house in Beacon Hill. It's too big for just me, and there are too many memories." "I'm sorry," I said, genuinely concerned. "Where will you go?" "That's what we wanted to discuss." She glanced at Victor, who nodded encouragingly. "I'd like to use part of the proceeds to invest in your scholarship program, to honor Robert's memory, and to make amends in some small way." I was speechless. Victor filled the silence. "It's a generous offer, Elena. It would allow us to double the number of fellows each year." "I don't know what to say," I admitted. "Say yes," Sophia urged. "It's important to Mum." "To all?" Avish. I looked at Claire, really looked at her, and saw not the woman who had tried to erase me from her life, but someone who was trying, in her own way, to rebuild what had been broken. "Yes," I said simply. "Thank you." Later, after the details had been discussed and everyone but Marcus had left, I sat at my desk, processing what had just happened. "You okay, boss?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. I nodded, smiling through sudden tears. "Better than okay. I think I finally found what I was looking for." "And what's that?" I touched my father's watch, thinking of the long, painful road that had led me here. "A family. Not perfect, not easy, but real." Marcus grinned. "Speaking of family, don't forget dinner at my place tonight. Sam's making his famous lasagna, and the kids have been asking when Aunt Elena is coming back." "I wouldn't miss it, I promise," gathering my things. As I left the office, I paused to look at the framed photo I'd recently added to my wall, Sophia and James on their wedding day. With me beside them, all of us laughing at something beyond the camera's view. Next to it hung a newer edition, a sketch of Harborview Hall with the words Elena Moretti Fellowship elegantly scripted beneath it. Not the family I was born into, or even the one I'd gained through marriage, but the family I'd fought for and found along the way. Imperfect, complicated, and more precious than I'd ever imagined. I stepped out into the Boston sunshine, my father's watch catching the light as I hailed a taxi. Somewhere, I liked to think, he was smiling.